Well, good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing great. Hey, have you been outside in the morning, the last few mornings, if you live here in Texas? I mean, we have had cool weather. It's almost been chilly a couple mornings outside, and that is just so rare in mid to late August in Texas. And so, if you're not getting out in the morning and enjoying it, you need to do that before we miss these awesome mornings. So, I've been outside the last few mornings enjoying that. So, I just got out of the pool, got some mowing done this evening, got out of the pool. We've actually got a junior high homeschool dance out here. So if you want to be entertained, come over. Um, but yeah, we're going to have a great weekend. I wanted to talk to you a little bit. We've been talking about fear and how to live fearlessly. And I want to give you a little challenge for the weekend. Okay, you ready? Well, um, here's what I want you to do Saturday morning, Sunday morning, and maybe even get into a habit of doing this every morning. And by the way, I don't think this is just a morning exercise, but I think this is a great place to start. If you're like me, I wake up in the morning, and if I'm going to have fear, if I'm going to have anxiety, I usually am going to wake up feeling that or already sensing that before I get out of bed. And some mornings, that's actually what wakes me up. And I know many of you have told me the same thing. You can't even sleep because of fear and anxiety, but others wake up with that feeling right away in the morning. But we can slip into this anytime during the day. And so I want to be clear. When I say live fearlessly, I don't mean that you're never going to have to deal with fear, that there's a way to go through life and never deal with fear. I think fear is always going to be in our face, and it's really an issue of, do we recognize it, and do we recognize that it's not true? It's real, but it's not true, and that there is a way then to deal with fear when it comes up. And fear, really, for most of us, is the main thing that's keeping us from being who we were designed to be and doing what we were designed to do. And it's the thing that's keeping us from accomplishing the things that we dream about doing, the things that are put designed right into us, deep down in our heart, and our deepest desires. And fear is what keeps us from going there. Fear is also what destroys relationships, by the way. Fear is at the heart of the so much of the strife in our country right now, the political strife, and we're so polarized and all that. That's all driven by fear. So, man, fear is such a big thing. We've got to learn how to deal with it in the right way. So, here's what I want to encourage you to do starting on Saturday morning this weekend, or if you see this tomorrow, maybe start Sunday morning. Wake up and just ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Like, really, what am I afraid of? And it may not be something immediate, but you may have to even just ask yourself in life in general, what am I afraid of? And some of you may want to respond to this, say, well, I'm not really afraid of anything, right? And I'm going to call BS on you because I've yet to meet a person that when we begin to talk, and eventually they're going to make a statement that is a statement based in fear. And so the most successful people I know, or the people that the world would consider to be successful, even them, when you begin to talk to them, there's fear there, and some big fears, and some fears that they deal with on a consistent basis. And so even they can benefit from this process of learning how to deal with fear, or to become fearless. So you just start with, what am I afraid of? And then once you find that, then I say just start digging even deeper and go, well, why am I afraid of that, or why is that fear there? And keep digging down and keep asking yourself, why, who, what, where, when do I experience this fear? Do I experience it around certain people in certain situations? Um, and then eventually, I want you to get down to the question, if that's what I fear, then what does that mean that I believe about myself? And what does it mean that I believe about other people? If the fear involves other people, what does it mean? What does it mean I believe about other people? And then ask yourself, what does it mean I believe about the situation? If it's a certain situation, maybe it's your work, or maybe it's a family situation, or a marriage, or something like that. Then what is it that I believe about the situation? And then finally, if you're a Jesus follower, or maybe even if you're not, ask, then what does that mean that I believe about God? Okay? And I'm going to give you an example here in a second. I think I may have mentioned this before. Once you get down to that, hey, you've already entered into this transformation process, or this living fearless process, because you've already begun to tell the truth, or to be honest. I'm going to start saying it that way, to be honest. And what we can offer is to be honest. And then once we're honest, again, if you're a Christ follower, God responds to the truth. He doesn't operate in false, he operates in truth. He doesn't operate in lies, he operates in truth. So when we're honest with him, then he's going to respond. He will respond to that. And so you say, God, here's how I see myself. Here's how I see the situation. Here's how I see other people. Here's how I see you. And don't be afraid to tell him how you honestly feel, even about him. And I keep telling you this. Don't make it pretty. Don't Christianize it. Don't do all the Christian cliches. Be honest. What do you really believe about him, about yourself, about the situation, about others? Don't try to clean it up for God, because he knows. Okay? So be honest with him. When you're honest, he responds. And you ask him, will you tell me the truth? So you give him honesty, you receive truth. And when you receive truth, then you can begin to change your mind. Your mind will change. That's actually what the phrase in the Bible, renewing the mind, means. It means mind change, or to turn from the wrong way of thinking to the right way of thinking, okay? Which also results in right actions. So give honesty, receive truth. That causes mind change. And when we have mind change, then we can enter into transformation, or we begin to see things change in form. We can begin to see our belief about things change in form. We can begin to see our actions change in form based on our beliefs. We can begin to see the difficult circumstances that we have found ourselves to be living in fear, and difficult relationships and those kind of things. They will begin to transform when we begin to receive the truth and operate in the truth and have that real change of mind. Okay? So it does work. It does change. It sounds way too simple. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it is simple. It's a simple process. We try to overcomplicate it, and the reality is we take this fear, we accept it, we actually make it part of our lives. It almost we embrace it and build it into our identity. And so that's the last thing then I want you to do is when you get honest and you start saying, well, here's what I'm afraid of, here's why I'm afraid of it, here's when I'm afraid, who I'm afraid, all of those kind of things. And eventually I want you to make an I am statement. Therefore I am blank. Okay? Therefore I am blank. Right there is your false identity. And that'll show you right there is how you take fear and lie-based thinking, and you begin to form your identity around things that aren't even true, around fear. And again, fear does not come from God. Fear does not come from the one who made you, who designed you, who created you, the one who knew who you were before your mom and dad even thought about you. That one, the one who was putting you together and knows every day of your life, that's where truth comes from. So find out, what is that I am statement? What is the false identity statement that you get from the fear and the other things that you're dealing with? And it could be guilt and shame, fear, guilt, shame, any of those. And I am blank. And then again, ask God for the truth. And as you begin to receive the truth, begin to ask God, who do you say that I am? So one, tell me the truth about the situation, about other people, about you, all of those kind of things. And then finally, God, what do you say about me? Because see, wrong belief about God leads to a wrong belief about ourselves. And when we get to a right belief about God, then we can begin to get to a right belief about ourselves. So this is really, really important in life. It's huge. And so what's the false identity I am statement? And then I want you to ask God, who do you say that I am? Right? And you'll be shocked. I think if you're listening to God and you hear God's voice, you're going to hear something and you're kind of going to, most people kind of shake their head like, no, that can't be true. And you're going to say that's not true because your experience to this point has been based in fear and lies. And you're going to go based on experience, that can't be true. Or based on what other people have said about me, that can't be true. But God has something very different to say. And again, we rarely walk in the truth. We walk in false identity. Get to the true identity. And the only way we can get that, it's received from God. And by the way, it's best to do this in community with other people who you trust, who you can walk through with this. I've got a couple really close friends that have been walking with me for a couple years. Actually, they've been friends for a long time, but we've been walking this journey to true identity together. And now I have 4 or 5 different groups that I'm doing this with, and I'm helping them, but at the same time, I'm continuing to learn more and more about my identity. And our identity continues to kind of grow, and our understanding of that identity grows over time. It's not just a one time, I've arrived, here I am, no more issues, right? This is this evolving thing that happens. And so I want you to go from the false identity, I am statement, and hear from God the true identity, I am statement. Now, I was working with a group one time on this, and a young lady, she didn't realize what she was doing, but she walked right through this process because she said, well, here's my external conflict. My external conflict is with my husband. Okay, well, what's the external when do you usually have conflict? Well, usually it's around the topic of money, because money's tight, and then we argue or fight about who's spending what on what, and how are we going to pay this bill, and how are we going to do that, and it creates this external conflict. Okay, and I said, and how what's going on inside of you then? Because external conflict only comes from internal conflict. And what she began to do is say, well, I guess I feel like we haven't handled our money well, and so therefore God's not happy with us, and because of that, then God's not going to bless us with more money. If we've not been good with the little bit we have, why would he give us more? Okay, so and then I said, okay, so then what does that mean you believe about yourself? And she said, well, that we're never going to have enough money. I said, okay, and what else? And she said, well, that I'm a poor money manager. Oh, okay. You hear the identity statement? I'm a bad money manager and I won't be blessed. You hear that? I'm a bad money manager and I won't be blessed, or I'm not blessed. Wow. Now, my question is, do you think that's what God would say to her? And so then begin the process of, okay, well, here's what I believe about myself. Here's what I believe about you, God. God, you're not going to provide. God, you're an angry God. And because I haven't handled money well, you're angry at me and you're not going to bless me. Or provide for me financially is a better way to say it. Right? Hear all the false statements and the false identity. And now you've got a person who's walking around with internal conflict, false identity, and then you wonder why there's conflict in the marriage. We'll see how that all ties together. So that's an easy example. Well, this person, she walked right down through those steps, all the way down into false identity. And then what I told her to do was, okay, what you need to do then is just be honest, tell God all of that, and then ask him to tell you what's the truth. Okay. And then she went into that process and God began to tell her the truth. And it was a beautiful thing, because what God had to say was very different, very different. Okay, so I won't go into all that. Again, I've gone longer than I wanted to, but I hope that helps. I hope that helps. Hey, and we're going to jump on beyond the fear or this transformation process at this point and begin to jump into how do we then get to true identity. I want to give you some examples or case studies of this, and again, this is all part of this journey that I've been on for 1.5 years, because what I learned was that, if you recall, one of my first videos was that what kicked off all of this was me kind of looking at my life and going, my life hasn't been bad, but God, you say that Jesus came to give us life and to give it in super abundance or super abundantly. That means overflowing. And I'm looking at my life going, oh man, I'm missing something, because there's no way that this is the super abundant life that you've talked about. There's no way that this is the super abundant life that you say that Jesus came to give. This can't be it. God, will you show me what is the super abundant life? And I'm not talking about wealth and riches and all those kind of things. I'm talking about, again, the deep desires that God's woven into who you are. And I didn't feel that I was experiencing that. I didn't feel like that I was living the life that he designed me to live. I wasn't feeling this or sensing or experiencing this superabundance. That's what kicked this whole thing off. And what I discovered was I've been living in false identity for most of my life. Not all the time, but most of my life, probably walking in false identity, that was rooted in fear, guilt, and shame. And when I began to deal with that and began to hear from God, the one who created me, the one who loves me, and begin to hear what he had to say about me, and then begin to walk in faith in that, things began to change. Now, my life's not perfect. I'm not saying I got it all figured out. I'm figuring it out. I'm learning. It has been transformational for me, and I'm seeing this be transformational for other people. Again, if you want to talk about any of this, many of you have reached out to me. I'm an open book. I'll make time to talk to you, chat with you, text with you, whatever, and would love to do that. So have a great weekend. Wake up tomorrow morning and ask yourself, what am I afraid of? And begin to do the work. All right? See you later.